Buttons! We pressed them buttons, smash them all! What up? Smash them all!
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Here
that's
on Cinema Bias.
Yep. What?
Yes, Cinema Bias. It's a thing.
This is a great intro. Can someone please sound like this and put it on the internet for our video? This is Cinema Bias with Alex Mack and me, Videodrew. It is where we discuss our unconscious biases in films that we have not seen or have not seen for a very long time and force them down each other's eyeballs. And tonight was Alex's pick. I went last week with the movie Cube. She went the week before with the movie Josie and the Pussycats because I started her off with Videodrome. And we have a little bit more of a structured thing tonight than we've had in other nights. But right off the top of the gate, I want to say, because I always forget, we have a stream. We have a stream labs. It's videodrew.club. Please feel free to like this video, subscribe to this channel, go over to videodrew.club and donate or just hang out. It lets you do a bunch of fun things on there because that money all goes to us and we need food and living supplies. And I also like spending a lot of money on making sure Brett's hair will one day be in my possession. So that's fun. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everyone knows to go to videodrew.club and money there, please. Especially if you want questions or comments to be noticed. That gives me a little alarm and I can see it and hear it and read it. That's it for me right now.
Yeah, well, this is a movie in particular. I'm glad I chose for this week because it's weird and wonderful, and I knew that Drew, you would love it. I knew that you would appreciate it. It's a movie for film lovers. It's a movie for movies. It's a movie for viewers that just like something weird. That even if you're not a fan of animated movies, even if you're not a fan of quote unquote foreign films or whatever it may be, you can find something to really appreciate about this movie for sure. So I was, and also it's a very personal movie to me. Like I grew up with this movie. I have a lot of, it's like a bit like every time my family and I get together for like dinner or anything, we reference this movie at least 2 or 3 times.
And this movie is
here and there.
So for people who are just joining us, this movie is that we are talking about tonight. Do we have a little thing for it? It is, I guess we can just say it. It is the Triplets of Belleville.
Triplets of Belleville.
Triplets of Belleville, which ironically is not a place in France in this movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
like just to put us down here.
The dope ass. Thanks, Robert, for the dope ass thumbnail. Oh, now we're switched. Okay, so
yeah, I was really excited to pick this movie in particular since it is so close to my heart. But is there anyone in the chat that also watched this movie or has any had any thoughts about it right out the get-go?
Hi, Delia. I have a quick little anecdote before this that I think is maybe relevant, which is that I think I've seen this movie before. Kind of like Josie and the Pussycats. I have like a big memory of seeing parts of it before, but then again, my brain lies to me a lot. So it might be doing the thing that I've done before and I tweeted about last night for like Lars von Trier's 5 Constructs, in which I like reference something a bunch, like all the time. Like I referenced that movie because it's a documentary about like a documentary filmmaker making like unnecessary constraints for someone trying to make a short film, like having this film set in Cuba or having no set or like all this different stuff to show about how like creativity can flourish under limitations.
Yes.
I have referenced this movie about like once a month for every year since my freshman year in college when it came out. I've never gotten the title of it right and I've never seen the film. Like I mean, like I just like the concept of it, and I just like to throw it out there like a pretentious film student. This movie is kind of like that. I think that I've definitely watching it. Was like, oh yeah, this thing that I definitely know about, and like was talking about around the same time Amelie was the thing, or maybe like slightly thereafter, or like
it's
you know.
Well, I mean, there's again, it's like one of those movies that's, kind of referenced in a certain way where like you only watch this as if you're a film buff or a snob or if you're a little pretentious about what kind of things you watch. And if you actually watch this movie, it's not pretentious at all. If anything, it's really warm and it's all about inclusivity, if anything.
Yeah.
It makes fun of those that are pretentious, if anything. But I'm glad if you watch this, like mentioned, please let us know. Even Mike just finished the film, and wow, I'm kind of blown away. Such creativity.
Eric was freaking out. Eric's like NerdChronic, he's asleep right now, but I really think that like he should be taking my place tonight because he came in being like, "What is this?" He was kind of like half paying attention, and by the end, he was like clapping with his like hands in his mouth, being like, "Oh my god, oh my god!"
So good. Okay, well, before we kind of dive any further, Drew, tell me, we're on a show called Cinema Bias, but we gotta know, what is your bias towards this movie?
So I'm the kind of person who doesn't necessarily go sees a lot of animated films, nor like, especially in this part of my life, I haven't seen that many foreign films, which sounds real bad because it is.
How dare you? Are you even a film?
No, I'm not. Very clearly not. I've seen both seasons of that German show Dark in like subtitles, but like I have not seen The Artist, which I believe is like this film, not really involving any other language. This movie is also like, it's animated. It's in this certain kind of style that I remember seeing. And again, like I think I lumped it in my head around this time of like, I was this kind of pretentious, so there's no reason I should have missed it because it's like it felt very like New Yorker cartoon. It's like gentle, but it's still there's that question of like who is this movie geared towards? I don't think it's like aimed at children, although me and Eric had a big debate about like whether this movie is a kids movie because I think like there's a lot of humor in it that is very physical and sort of Buster Keaton-ish, but it's a little bit old. It's a little bit old school, I think. Like I'm not sure kids would be able to sit through this, like young kids.
Yeah, I always felt like it's very similar to like a Pixar movie, like Inside Out or Toy Story. So kids are going to watch it and they're going to see something a little more surface level. They're going to see some of the physical comedy. They're going to see, the cool visuals, how pretty the songs are. And how weird everyone looks. I mean, the bodyguards. I mean, like,
oh my god, like people are dressed. I can't believe this movie came out now, or like I can't believe this movie came out in this century as opposed to like in the 50s, or like it's a love letter.
A lot of weird, it's a lot of like weird themes. If you're an adult, though, you might be taking away very different themes, very different ideas of characters as well. Yeah.
Can I tell you something? When I was watching it, I turned to him and I went, "This is Ethan Irwin's next like Fritz the Cat's Bowl," because like you put this in like an animated movie category in Schmoedown, and like I will be like praising the Lord that you made me watch this because like it's gonna be what French movie involves. Okay, and this will be like my quick summary. What French movie involves like a grandma searching for her Tour de France like grandson and who's been kidnapped to America and saved by a trio of like singing witches who love to do music with their appliances, and things get like at least 6 people get murdered, like just straight up murdered in this film.
Right?
Like
completely gone.
Murdered, not like murdered by incident, like the gun to the head murdered.
It sounded like overall though, honestly, you had like a general idea of it, but you didn't really know any of the specifics.
I knew that there was no. I remember there was like a very like highbrow aesthetic to it, which is to say like it's a cartoon, but it's not a cartoon that like I think as a child with ADHD I'd be particularly. It's not Ralph Breaks the Internet. There's not beep boop bop bop. It's very like Chuck Jones, like Looney Tunes, early Looney Tunes, maybe like early Tom and Jerry. The palette is really dark. It's sort of like menacing in a lot of ways. People are like everyone's at a lot of angles. There's almost this German expressionist kind of look to it. Like it's all the Americans look like they're like in some hell version of WALL-E where they're like obese.
Hell version of WALL-E.
You know what I mean? Like they're all like super obese, like idiot looking people. Like
I'm actually gonna say if you have not seen this, I'm gonna actually pull up just some visuals right now.
It's hysterically funny. Also, like like our heroines in the film are like in any other movie, it would be hard to call these women heroines. Like it's hard to think of another movie that stars like 3 old crones who like pick a woman up off the street and like they're the good guys and not the witches. It's very much like these they come off as very witchy people, the triplets, and they're the heroes of the story.
Yeah, it's has a very specific aesthetic where everything is very exaggerated and has a very warm color tone as well, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
but I, honestly, has once you said, the witches, with Angelica Houston and everything, I was like, boom, Yes.
That's what it reminded me of. Like, I was watching this and I was like, is this like some weird version of Macbeth? I was like, is this? I was like, are these? So maybe we should just jump into that. Maybe we should just jump into the plot, because otherwise I feel like I'm just going to give it all away.
Yes. Yeah, tell me the plot in 1 minute specifically.
Okay, 1 minute. Let's see. Let's get the timer out.
Let me get you the.
If I do it in 1 minute, maybe and you do it in 1 minute and give me $1 and I'll chug the rest of this Dr. Pepper.
Starting right now.
Okay, so there's this old. It starts out with these 3 youngish women and they're singing on a stage, and there's this weird woman who comes on and sings, and then a bunch of monkeys attack, and then suddenly cut to it's the Tour de France, and there's this woman who has a grandson, and the grandson gets kidnapped at the Tour de France, and they go to him, and he gets taken to America, and the woman with her really obese dog also go to America on a small boat. They're taken on a bigger boat. She is left like homeless on the street while searching for her grandson, who has been kidnapped by these witch opera house like guys who want to hold a contest for they want to convince the viewers that they are watching the Tour de France by having a bunch of cyclists be forced to cycle until they die from exhaustion or get shot in the head. And this woman teams up with the women that we have seen in the beginning, the singers who are now old and like crones, and together they go and rescue the son and get a bunch of people shot in the process. Ooh. And like people just straight up die. And they bite the son and the other bikers who seem to be like in some sort of trance. They manage to get their way by biking their way past the opera house, like onto a boat and all the way home. And then they live happily ever after. And the end,
done.
Yeah, that was it. Boop. Big boat.
Yeah, I think you're pretty on point, honestly. I'll say specifically on Wikipedia. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to IMDb instead. So how they just kind of describe it? It's just a little more simply.
I'm sure. Like if there's me involved, I'm sure there's a simpler way.
I'll give you like a minute. If I give you like 20 seconds, I'm sure it would be a tad different.
No, give me 20 seconds and I'll be like, okay, so there's monkeys in the audience of this opening scene, right? Like it's crazy monkeys. I think it's kind of racist. I don't know. Like it's weird.
I mean, there are, like I mentioned earlier, this is a movie for film buffs. I mean, even if you're not a film buff, you're still going to appreciate it. But if you are a film buff, they're going to take away so much more detail.
Oh my God.
I'm going to talk about that later. But on IMDb, the plot says, when her grandson is kidnapped during the Tour de France, Madame Souza and her beloved pooch, Bruno, team up with the Belleville trio sisters, an aged song and dance team from the days of Fred Astaire, to rescue them from the French mafia.
The French mafia, they're living in New York. It's weird. Like, it kind of, it's great. I mean, it's great. This movie is great, but I will say this. I am like a child with ADHD, so I'm basically the target audience of a cartoon movie. Like, I watch Ralph Breaks the Internet, that tracked. I watch Matrix Reloaded, kind of got like half the themes in that. I tried to watch this movie, and I had to keep being like, wait, who's that again? Like, wait, what's happening? Like, until like halfway through, and then it all clicked for me. But I was like, wait, who's this woman? Is she one of the 3 women? And Eric was like, no, that's another woman. The other women haven't like showed up. And I was like, well, where did they go? Or they went to the race? Where's the race? I was like acting like a child. But I think like halfway through, I was like, oh, this is like, they just said Fellini among like other nonsense words, because the people in this movie, it's really, really confusing because they first start out, they don't really talk. It's like they speak some language at some points and they'll be speaking French and you'll pick up a couple words, but I know French a little bit. I took it in high school. And I was like, these words are nonsense words. They'll be like circle, square, bike, man. They weren't really jiving together. And I just thought I was having a stroke. But it turns out like that's just what they were doing. Because when they get to America, they also say nonsense words, but that are words. It's like aphasia or something. They have like aphasia.
Well, the movie itself, it's set during the 50s, technically, although you can arguably say it looks like today. The aesthetic of the city itself, the city of Belleville, is actually supposed to be based on a mixture between Quebec, Montreal, and New York. So the director who actually wrote it as well, which is like 10 letters, I mean, not letters, but words, I can't even pronounce it, Sylvain Chomet?
Sounds right to me. Sounds right to you guys?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know.
Because that's how they talk about it. And I'm like,
but it's a really kind of interesting idea. It has like a lot of themes surrounding industrialism. That's anti-consumerism. This idea of what families are, supporting each other, and also the relationships between, what the definition of a family is. Because she is his grandma, she is his guardian, but at the same time, he doesn't have parents really. Maybe they're away, maybe they died. We're not entirely sure.
Oh my god, but it's like the end, he says it. Like he says, for my parent is what that's the one thing that's written out is like, for my parents, I think, is the last line of the film.
What was it when I saw that scene, I read it as like, maybe it was like an old letter that maybe they
I don't even know. I don't even know if it's diegetic. I thought that like maybe the director was saying this movie was for my parents, like a book. Like I didn't take anything away from that. Did you, however, make it to the post-credit sequence where the guy's still waiting on the shore for his boat to be returned?
Oh, yes. Oh,
that was amazing. Like that was like a little teaser that they gave us on Amazon. Yeah. They give you on Amazon, like if you try to exit out of the movie, like Amazon will do a thing like, don't you want to know like some cool trivia like about the movie? And the first thing was just there's a post-credit sequence. So I was like, yeah, good job, Amazon.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, if you're going to be diving into this, like a lot of this movie actually did really, really well. It won a whole bunch of awards. It was actually nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Animated Feature, as well as Best Original Song with Triplets of Belleville, Rendezvous, boom, 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 boom. That song is so fucking catchy. I love that song.
So that movie, it does kind of make sense. It does kind of make sense that everyone in this movie is sort of scatting. Like that sounds bad, but you know what I mean? Like they're all talking the way jazz people talk in like the way that people sing in jazz, which they're just making up words and they're just making up things that sound weird together, like rendezvous, something, something, let's go to the zoo, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, doop a doop dub, blah, 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 bloop. And you're like, what? And they're like, So it does have a jazz sort of sensibility to it.
Yes. You open up in the movie. The movie opens up starting out with a stage. And with this almost like a concert hall kind of thing, and with that song, which was nominated for Best Original Song, actually, in a whole bunch of awards. It actually won Best Original Song at that year's Oscars to Into the West from Return of the King.
Oh well, someone's gonna have to
like,
You know what I just realized? You know whose favorite movie this is? And this is not a knock on the movie, just a knock on the people. I think maybe this is the reason I hadn't seen it. Because it's the kind of person I imagine loving this movie. It's definitely the favorite movie of the characters in La La Land. Like, that's Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's like go-to fucking movie. Yeah, it's all about like, it's got jazz in it. It's got New York. It's got like that thing, but then it's also like beautiful and like whimsical. And like, I feel like maybe I hate the concept. My own bias is I have a concept in my head of the person who wants to go see an animated movie that's specifically like, not adult like racy, but adult like highbrow, like, highbrow like sensibilities, like the way that that old Looney Tunes that's about opera is.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, like I mentioned, it kind of opens up on this kind of concert hall situation with with women singing and everything. But I mean, there's references to a lot of performers that you would only probably you might only recognize if you kind of studied film or if you are familiar with a lot of the classics. I mean, Josephine Baker, for example, she was a sex icon. I mean, of the 20s, with the banana skirt situation. She was like one of the big dancers. Fred Astaire, he's one with he's supposed to be shown with the shoes eating him.
Oh my god, the shoe work in this movie is like out of this world. It's like only rivaled by the actual like that Charlie Chaplin did. Like that is the level of shoe game here. However, like, you know what? I like
a bunch of people though.
But yeah, I mean, what this reminded me of, like Looney Tunes, like like a bunch of old Looney Tunes were referencing, the Gone with the Wind guy, and stuff like they'd make the mouse with the big ears, and he was like clearly a reference to what was his name, Clark? Oh my god, no, nobody put me on a movie trivia show right now, but like Clark Gable. Like, there was that mouse on Looney Tunes who would show up sometimes who was the Clark Gable mouse, and like as a kid, you're like, I didn't get that, but like as an adult, that's why Chuck Jones's style like worked so well for adults, because it was both funny, like blow guns up and Elmer Fudd's face funny, and it was funny on like this New Yorker caption contest of the week.
Pasted on the mustache.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny the way that Bugs Bunny was both a girl entrancing Elmer Fudd, but also there would be highbrow literary references, and they would do opera. So
yeah, it's well, this movie's kind of interesting as well, where it's Drew, I was wondering if you're actually going to mention it. I mean, if you're gonna notice it, but there's a lot of comments being very anti-Disney in this movie. Did you notice any of the little things?
I did. I'll be honest with you, because this show is about honesty above all else. I've just decided this show is about honesty, friendship, and talking about cinema biases. Ugh. Put on your red hat. Everyone who's got a red hat and a blue shirt. That's what we're doing tonight. Someone takes a shit in this movie, and it looks like Mickey Mouse. That's weird. But I will be honest, I did not notice that until like after the movie, when I was like, let me look up more trivia facts that Amazon's just going to feed down my gullet now that they've hooked me with the like post-credit sequence. And one of them was like, you notice all this, like this whole fuck you Disney thing, which I feel like is the only thing maybe that sets it in this time period, because this movie could exist in any time period. I feel like it could have been made in any time period. I think the way they illustrated it could have been done like, you know, like the Constraint movie that I love to reference without ever having seen. It's like they put a lot of old school animation styles in this film, and the only thing that I think gives it away as modern is the like fuck you Disney like aspect of it, which was it was done subtly enough that I didn't catch it. But then again, I'm not a subtle person, so.
Well, I mean, like it's subtle, but at the same time, it's not subtle. I mean, this movie at the very beginning, it really talks about it's criticizing this idea of industrialization a little bit, especially visually. Their grandma and her grandson, Grandma Sousa and her grandson, you know, they live in this itty bitty house in the country, and suddenly, as the years progress, the city in the distance gets bigger and bigger, and it's literally like has a train track thing that tilts its house over.
I think we're family in this part of the thing, so
yeah,
put this up here because I wanted to talk about that as well.
Yeah, well, before kind of going into that though, I felt like it was a little bit of a commentary on Disney, like almost this idea that Disney is taking over as well. Disney might be is just so industrialized and so focused on this kind of consumer culture, where it's really kind of taking over these smaller companies and these smaller creatives. And you know, even later on, where what's his name? He's like putting oil.
Does anyone have a name?
He's I know everyone has names. He has a picture in his wallet where he goes to Hollywood Food World or something like that, and he puts a picture next to Mickey Mouse, and it says "sucker" right underneath.
It says "sucker" on it. That part I did catch, and I was like,
so I was
are they saying?
I see. So it was kind of, and I was checking out a lot of the director's history. Prior to this, because he's never been involved with any kind of Disney affiliated production company or movie. Apparently he was offered many times to be involved with Disney productions. He was apparently offered to be like a creative director or a director of a Pixar movie at one point. But he was like, nah, bitch.
And he's like a French guy that's like relatively unknown, but they were going to hand him a Pixar movie, and then he decided to go fuck you Disney. I really want to hear the story of like what this guy's thing was. Yeah, maybe it is literally
there was no mention of like which movie it was. Maybe it was going to be like where they were like, do whatever you want.
Yeah, but France does have a perception of Americans that I think comes off very clearly in this movie, and it's like, we are fat idiots at best. Like at our best, we are fat, well-meaning idiots. And like at our worst, we are like literally part of a system of murder and for entertainment, like murder and just straight up murdering people for entertainment, forcing people to like work to their bones and then shooting them in the head, which happens in this movie.
Yeah, there's
it's crazy.
It's really, there's a lot of people they just are casually, violently dead.
I was like, they're going to get away and they're going
to in this movie.
They're going to get away and show that guy was not actually shot, because at one point a biker falls over in this not nightclub, opera, whatever, casino, whatever the French mafia guys living in New York who have absconded French bikers and are putting them on now as sport and pretending that they are beaming in a satellite of the Tour de France. Are doing when the bikers falls over, he has this like rictus, like the rigor mortis face. His face is so terrifying. His face is like bulging out.
Well, all the cyclists do. They're all like exaggerated and skinny and like awkward. They look like horses. They're like,
it's such like it is such like a. Yeah, they look like they're dying horses. They look like in Ren and Stimpy when the horse character would show up, and like it was like as a child you were like, that's uncomfortably close to what I will. And in the future, know an orgasm looks like in a dude. Like, that's just not a great face. Yeah, like, it's just a really upsetting face to watch. So that's why
they're really not
even, yeah. The other character that I
not
love.
Exaggeration, like what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly how it's happening.
There's two dudes that they're literally bricks. They're brick size. They have arms like this. They walk like this. And at one point, they just turn towards each other. They're twins, and they just turn to each other, and they move real close. And then my joke was I was like, kiss, kiss. And then they just move, and they smush faces real quick.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was it? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, the visuals were just so wonderful. I just really want to show that scene.
Upsettingly, I don't think they kissed. Upsettingly, I think they morphed into the same person for a hot minute and then just morphed back. It was weird.
Just to let you know, it's like this is like when I say they're very horse-like. I mean, like you can see like the size that they're kind of hunched over. The necks. I mean, look at this.
That's the
bodyguard right there.
It's one of the block dudes.
He's just like, and when they walk together like as one, and they're like. So good. It's so weird. But if you win the Tour de France, you start making out with the Baby Bell ladies.
Yeah. The women in this, I mean, they're very fun. The other person that the thing that I think sold Eric, I can't speak for Eric, except I will right now speak for Eric, and I will find the photo and put it up, there was one character that he was like, oh God, now I'm sold. And it's the waiter.
Where he's like literally bending over backwards.
It's a waiter, and he's literally bending over backwards to the point that he bends over. Oh my God! Wait, I got the picture right here. It is. I was like looked over because he was like, "Oh my God!" And I looked over and I was like, "What's going on?" And oh fuck! This is. I was like, "That's fucking horrible." Like that. I was like, "That's horrible looking." He went, "That's amazing." So let's see.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Oh no, I think I have it. Hold on, let me get it. Let's see. Yeah.
Oh right. My gosh.
I think if we play it without sound, it will be totally fine, and YouTube can't do anything to me. Just kidding. They totally can. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah. This guy, this motherfucker, so scary. Not into it. Kind of into it. Let's see. No, is that my stream? Oh, it came up another stream. Sorry.
That's mine.
Sorry. Here we go. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. It happens to us. It's not trying to call in anywhere. Now we're up, right? Tell me I'm getting it. Yeah.
And yes, just saying, Ferris, I agree. There is quite a bit of murder. Just like in that movie, you're having your picture.
This dude just freaks me the fuck out. Let's see.
Bringing out that champagne.
Popping them bottles. My fucking TV's glitchy as hell, but you know.
You want me to see if I can bring it up?
No, it's the overlay I think that's doing it. But like this dude looks like something that Terry Gilliam would have done for like a Monty Python bit. Like it is so creepy. I think it's like the overlay. It's like let me pull it down for a second.
Yes, agreed, Mike. That waiter is so weird, and he's fantastic. Like, what is going on?
But you're right. When you say it out loud, you realize this is what I mean by literary. It's like you don't until you say it out loud. Like, what is he doing? He is bending over backwards.
He's literally bending over backwards.
It is literary, and it is literally a dude like a waiter bending over backwards. It is a visual. It's a visual metaphor. You know, like it's clever. It's hard. Like I kind of just want to play a couple sequences now on mute because I'm realizing that's a cool hack. Because you'll get a sense here of what I mean, like a little bit. This reminds me of seeing like Fantasia as a kid. I blame gravity. I noticed that he said that a bunch of the references in Looney Tunes during the time weren't going to be like deep cut pulls because Gone with the Wind was big during that time. I'm talking about specifically the opera Looney Tunes, like the one that's just an opera. Like there was some Looney Tunes that was literally just for adults, and not just like in the way that like some cartoons are now for adults because they're risque or they're like Family Guy. I mean, they're for adults who like read and go to the opera. They're for a very specific type of adult that I feel like I know I never was and will no longer be. These witches though,
these badass ladies. Okay.
I gotta admit, I almost teared up a little bit when they get to their house, and so they take this woman in. This is the woman they're singing to, the woman who's lost her grandson. They take her back to the house. They fry her up some frogs. They like give her a plate of frogs, and she tries to go put the leftovers in the fridge. And one of the women is just like, and it's It's also a great story about like how we don't need words and we don't like need words to communicate across cultures, because really what this movie is about is how they can't, you know, the reason that it's kind of gobbledygook language is because it's supposed to represent, I think, how this woman would be out of place in a different country and they wouldn't be able to understand each other. So it's all like visual. She has to, one of the women, when she tries to put the leftovers in the fridge, she's like, no, and closes the fridge. And she's like, but it's like very visual. The way she's like, no, and she takes it away, and it's not mean, and it's not like you're doing anything wrong. It's just the way that somebody would like show a guest like an exaggerated fashion, being like, no. And then she like kisses the fridge. And then later on, there's something else like with she wants to vacuum. The old lady wants to thank them by vacuuming up the house, and she starts to put it in the vacuum. And the same woman's like, no, like, and she like hugs the vacuum. And I was like, what is their thing? I thought their thing for a bit was that they are love mess.
Oh my gosh.
I thought they love mess. It turns out,
I kind of mentioned earlier, like as far as like inside jokes go, honestly, this is like that scene is like a huge joke in my family. We would literally be like, meh. Or every time my dad would whip out the vacuum, he'd be like, I would go and pretend to turn on the vacuum, and my dad would go like, no.
Yeah, they talk
do that for a minute.
they talk like they're halfway between like Charlie Brown's parents and like maybe like the Gremlins in the first Gremlin movie, like or the aliens from Mars Attack. They're like, but then half of it, but it is French, and the words they're saying are French words and they're American words, but they're like scatting. So it's all very weird. I kind of want to find that sequence and do the Triplets of Belleville, just because it's so interesting to watch it as a scene of like, this is a scene that does not require communication. Like, people do not need to be speaking for you to understand what's going on, which is that's like a sign of great art, honestly. Like, who wouldn't say that? So let's see.
Well, would you say this is like your favorite scene? If you could,
I think this
had to show anyone only one scene of this movie, would it be this scene?
It would be halfway through the scene. Let's see where they put it away. Let's see if they will show us where the scene is here. Yeah, here we go. I would say this segment of it is where the movie really started to click with me, because just what you see, we don't even need the music on, because again, there's no or the sound on, because you would need no contextual cues, because these people do not speak the same language. They're just speaking gibbly-gook to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like how Pikachu is going to speak to each other.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what are they doing?
So cool.
They hope that worship. And so that was Eric's first thought. He was like, maybe they just worship technology because it's new and they worship it. But that is not what that is. We're missing the part with the vacuum. But that turns out it's not what it is. What it is that they use them for musical instruments.
Yeah, they have if you're looking in the background, there's like 3 Oscar statues. There are several Grammy statues, as well as like so many instruments surrounding them. But it's also kind of interesting because, like I mentioned, like this movie in particular, it does have a 94% on approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Not surprised in the slightest. It definitely translates across languages, cultures, and everything.
Critics would love this movie. But critics would love. This is the kind of movie. This is like what you call a festival darling.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's a movie for film buffs. I mean, like it's not only for movie for film buffs, but you're gonna love it so much more if you are a film buff.
God,
it's kind of like La La Land. Like,
yeah,
see? Cool, you might like it, but if you live in LA, or if you're part of the Hollywood community,
La La Land
you are fucking loving La La Land.
Well, here's the thing. God help you if this movie becomes a question in Schmoedown and you're playing against like Whitney and Alfonso. Like that's like just you're screwed. I mean, that's that kind of thing where it's like they would know this movie because this is you know, when they say like in jokingly and stuff, they're like, it's almost like New York was a character. Like this is one of those movies that is one of those tropes. Like things in this are like a callback to a better age and a more enlightened age of culture. You know, this is a reference to the cartoon style in the New Yorkers.
There's Charlie Chaplin, there's Fred Astaire, there's Josephine Baker, there's Glenn Gould, there's Jacques what's his face? I can't pronounce
exactly. I don't even know who most of these people are. But then again,
there's Yvette Horner. There's a lot of like well-known performers that are like international performers that are like referenced pretty consistently throughout this movie.
And what year was this movie made? Because this was before The Artist, right? It
it was released in theaters in 2003.
So it was like, so it's 7 years. What year did the Oscar win? 2008? Sorry, the artist one for best.
I have no clue. I'm not
the one that was like also the non-talking French one that was in black and white. Didn't that win best picture?
Silent Cinema.
No one ever, but it was like recently. Let's see, guys, The Artist. Remember the guy was in Wolf of Wall Street for 2 seconds as a Swiss banker. I know that part.
Okay, just saying, if Scorsese doesn't call it cinema, come on, dude. I mean, like,
wait, Scorsese didn't call it cinema? So yeah, wait, go Drew. I was only 3 years off. That movie was in 2011.
Wow.
And it's set in the 20s, and it's a black and white, non-speaking French film. So I think that's like the comparison that I drew in my head was like, oh, it's another, not like this is an Oscar winner. This is, or like an Oscar nominee. This is a foreign film that is the opposite of like how our films work, which is that we make these big tentpole movies so that they can play in India and other countries and they'll be able to understand it without having to get too complicated in the story because they're these overarching meta narratives. And this is like France and Europe being like, yeah, but we like our shit a little bit more highbrow than that, and we think you can handle it. Like, we're not going to make you listen to subtitles, but like we'll make it quiet and mute.
Yeah,
you're still gonna have to think, and it's still going to like require you to do more than just like sit back passively and like watch Tony Stark go kill Thanos.
Well, okay, just to clarify, I love Thanos. I love
it. It's a different kind of experience.
That whole world, so that's a whole other category. It's a whole other kind of movie that you're watching to appreciate.
Scorsese. Because I didn't see David's point. Scorsese would absolutely consider this cinema. That's maybe the issue I had with it. Is like this is the kind of movie that Scorsese would not only like love, but like then like him or Tarantino would like put in the background of one of their movies, like as a visual cue. Because it is so much like. It does come off like, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing because this thing is beautiful. It is very much like a cinematic circle jerk of highbrow concepts. That's not to say it's bad, but that is to say it could be used. I could see like people, like you said, like I said it in a negative way that it's the La La Land character's favorite movie. But I think you meant it in a positive way that La La Land and this movie share something similar, which is like
you mentioned, if you are a part of that community, you will love it that much more. It's like people that like dancers and people that love that are in the theater world, they love the movie Fame because it's a movie about being in that life, and so they can appreciate it in a whole new way.
Don't tell anyone that's a dance movie. That's my secret category strength. But I need people not to know the understanding the concept
and
of.
Yet you announce it.
Yes,
I'm a chaotic neutral. Oh, so it's actually when it went up against the Oscars, like I mentioned earlier, it was nominated for Best Original Song as well as Best Animated Feature. So it came out, it was released in 2003. So what other animated movies came out in 2003? A little Pixar flick called Finding Nemo.
Oh my God.
So
that's hard. Oh God, don't make a question out of it.
Pixar movie ever. So I'm not surprised in the slightest that it lost. It's still talked about as like one of the best Pixar movies ever. And
can you imagine if that's a Pixar movie he chose not to do? What if that's the movie that the director chose not to do? Like if they were like, okay, well, if you won't do the Talking Fish movie, then we'll just put it against your French woman with the kidnapped grandson who's maybe going to get a shot in the head.
Or about guardians trying to find their kids, essentially.
You know what would make sense? This doesn't make sense to me.
A partner or two.
It's weird. This does make sense to me as like a best. Sorry, I'm like that's way too blinding of a hairline. This does make sense to me. It's a hair clip. Don't worry, guys. I'm not going bald. This makes sense to me as a best animated nominee during this period of time when before there was like more than 4 nominees for Best Picture, because this is like I would also put it up for like Best Foreign Film. But that was before like last year when a foreign film could win Best Picture. That's my whole other rant about this week was how I finally saw Jojo Rabbit, and my God, that should have won Best Picture. Whole other story. But
that's not so much a hot take, but
it's a pretty hot take.
I don't agree with that take, but I totally understand where you're coming from.
I love characters, but
it's also lost for Best Original Song. It lost to Lord of the Rings Into the West, which was done with Annie Lennox as well as Howard Shore won the Oscars for
See, sometimes I don't want to learn information, but I feel like because of this show, I have to learn things because you're saying them to me, and I will now never forget that Howard Shore won the Academy Award in 2003 for like Best Original Song for Return of the King, along with Annie Lennox.
Best original song, not best original score.
Oh, did I say song? Did I say song or score?
I don't know, but I just want to let you know that because there is a difference. Technically, they're different categories.
Scores and soundtrack.
Regardless. I don't know about it being a year of Kung Fu Panda. But what was your favorite? Okay, we talked about your favorite scene, but what was your favorite character? Since there's a lot of weird characters, what was the character you were like, oh my gosh, I love this one?
I mean, I kind of hard one because honestly, all the characters sort of like low key scared me. I was like, the animation style in this, I will admit, is like not for me. There's a bunch of animation styles that I just feel are like, and it's gonna sound funny to say, but I just find too creepy. Like as a kid, Ren and Stimpy like creeped me out. A lot of cartoons, the way they're drawn, SpongeBob creeps me out. I don't like anything where these features are so exaggerated that people like, or the things look like they are bulging or in anguish. I also like kind of intense tryptophobia, so anything that's like too many holes or eyes can like freak me out. I am a big animation fan. I love The Simpsons. I love Family Guy. I love Pixar films. I love animated films, but like I don't know, like I was like kind of like nervous going into it, and it's not like I walked away being like this character is my favorite because of their amazing dialogue. However, there is one character I liked, and that was the woman we saw. Like there's no like distinction between the triplets, but that one who kisses the fridge and who's seen kind of as the leader of the three. She just has this like old Grammy look, but like she's definitely got like she's packing some heat on her. Like she's definitely like the troublemaker of the three. Am I wrong? Like, she's like the ringleader of the three of them. That she's like the one who's kind of the face of the group.
Well, I mean, they're all faces of the group. I mean, all three of them have they all are meant to be very almost identical, but have very small, distinct, different features. Like one of them has like a different kind of bow on their shoes, and the other one has like a squirrel scarf kind of thing, and the other one has slightly wavy hair. So I mean, but each of them has like their like one-on-one moment with Grammy, so you can appreciate it.
This is why like I should not be in charge of picking up details in movies, because I could not realize that these three women were like basically the same woman and with slightly different features. I assumed I thought they were different heights, and I thought like I just didn't notice the other two women as much. I was like, you just must be turning over like and looking at the screen every time this one is on the stage. That's very funny. I have severe ADHD. It's not being helped by being home all the time doing 100 different streams. But I mean, like literally and this is again, not a knock on the movie. Last night I tried to watch The Matrix Reloaded for the first time. I got 5 minutes in and I was like, I don't understand. I don't
understand. That movie is so weird. I feel like that's an entire conversation for another day.
Oh, it's going to be a conversation next week, I think. We're doing another quiz on it. So.
Also, I'm not going to lie, my favorite character is Bruno.
Is that oh my god, the dog? Oh yeah.
Bruno, the dog is so weird and delightful.
This dog is like how all my mom's dogs end up. This is like whenever my mom gets a dog and like I talk to her and FaceTime her, and then like 4 months later I see the dog and I'm like, what the fuck has happened to that dog? It's always what's going on with the dog in this movie. Like it's the way that people are fat in this film is like one kind of blockish way or like round way. This dog is like rolled. Like this dog is like sensually fat, if I might put it like in a disgusting way. Like, not sexually, sensually, like in a way that you can almost viscerally feel like what the dog like would feel like. Yeah, sensually. Oh, really? I mean, like I find it creepy. But I do love my dog.
I do have a very massively chubby, grossly chubby cat, so I definitely understand that. It's
I'm just like
watching that. It was. I mean, there's like parts with actually, you know what? I do understand where you're coming from. But I look at this dog and the way it's just like sitting on the floor, like staring at the window, like flat with all of its legs out, or it feels like the ground shaking a little bit. So that the train is coming, so it sprints up to the window, and that's one of its big activities of the day.
It undulates. That's the word I'm looking for. It undulates. It undulates like it's like an eldritch horror from like a Lovecraft movie. Like the way this beast moves, it's like it more like moves on the way that like a animal crawling, like an insect crawling on its grotesque whatever. That being said, it is adorable the way fat animals are adorable.
Yeah, it's but at the same time, the loyalty of Bruno is like hanging tough. He's the one that smelled out the mafia bad dudes and brought it to the attention of Grandma Souza. And where the movie ended would not have happened if it wasn't for Bruno. So we have that to thank for.
Yeah, look. There's nothing wrong with this dog or the animation style of this movie. It's like going to be the kind of thing that I feel like was never going to hit like audiences and like kids are going to go like see it on the weekend. It was never meant to be that thing. And I think his whole fuck you to Disney was his thing of being like, I'm not trying to appeal to everyone or like small children necessarily with this film. This is a film like that's a love letter to the 50s and 60s and the animation style they're in. Like this is a love letter to jazz. That's why I said like the Gosling character. And Emma Stone would love it. Like, it clearly is a love letter to a certain era, and it's not trying to appeal, like, in any way, shape, or form. Not with like the lack of language or the like kind of like hard barrier to entry of it being like a foreign film in which like it starts out in French. Like, if you don't speak French, you just assume that this movie is speaking in French in a normal way, and you're just like, why doesn't it have subtitles? You know, like so they'll be speaking, and you're like, why isn't it subtitled? As a child, you'll be like, why can't I understand? Sorry.
Well, I'm kind of curious now because it is like a lot of it in French. However, the city itself was inspired by a combination of these Canadian cities as well as New York City. So I'm actually kind of wondering if it's actually technically a Canadian movie or a French movie.
Oh shit!
Because French is technically, it's like one of the national languages of Canada. So now I'm like, wait, what?
But wait. I thought the part that was like maybe Canadian was the fact that the sisters themselves live in a place called Belleville. So that's a French word. Like Belleville is like Belle is spelled like the French belle. So that's
Belleville is an actual place in France.
Oh, but the sisters don't live in France; they live in America. But like Belleville is where the sisters live, right? Unless I'm crazy here, because it said exiting.
It is where the sisters live. It absolutely is.
But the sisters live in America, right?
Well, there's no mention that they live in America.
But that's where they find the chick, right? Am I totally?
There's no mention. No.
Did they ever go to America over the course of this film? No,
there's no city. There's no city in part. There's the city itself. They at the beginning they live in this country town, but they never actually go. They go to like another town where the Tour de France takes place. But then they end up going to where everything else is in French. But then they eventually she takes the little roller thingy over to Belleville.
There is there's one, maybe again it's a mashup, but there is a direct visual reference to the Flatiron District when they're in that metropolitan city. The way the buildings are set up, it's the Flatiron District. Like that's as a New Yorker, I'm gonna pull out my New Yorker cred right here. Like as a New Yorker, that's the way that looks. That's the way that visual style is done. That's the way the buildings kind of fold in on triangles on themselves, and they're very slim buildings that form like a sort of triangle at this little cross intersection. And I'm pretty sure that like because everything goes from being in French, the words, to being in English, that at least they've gone from France to across the ocean, whether it's in in Canada or America. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be New York. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it could be like
I mentioned, I based it off of some of the articles that I read, but everyone involved said specifically that the visual styles are supposed to be a mesh of a combination of New York City, Quebec, and Montreal. So, I mean, having those calls to New York City, like you mentioned with the Flatiron District and everything, the burger joint and everything as well, is very specifically New York.
New York. As a New Yorker.
Like the restaurants, the wine place where the French mafia people are, everything is it would be like more French style.
But I think that the point of, and that's like interesting because I think the point of, so the French mafia guys, right? They steal.
There's a Statue of Liberty in France, though. The original Statue of Liberty. There's 3 Statues of Liberty.
Yeah, there's also one in Vegas, I believe.
I don't know about the Vegas one, but I believe there's 2 in France. Oh wait, there's one, or is there one in the UK?
Yeah, today in Cinema Bias, today we learned there might be more than one Statue of Liberty.
There's totally. It's like a whole lesson in.
It's kind of a lesson that you can Google. My thing though is I didn't realize that they were French kidnappers. I thought they were American kidnappers who were kidnapping French people. It's funny because when you first see their sign, and it's the first thing you see in English in the entire course of the movie, is you see the name of their nightclub or like a sign at their nightclub, and it says authentic French wine in English. And NerdChronic was like, oh wait, I think I know where this is going. Or maybe I said it. At this point, I can't tell. I was like, it's
okay.
gonna be, yeah.
We'll say so during the big event, French gangsters kidnapped Champion, which is like pretty much the name of the cyclist, but puts him on a ship across the Atlantic to Belleville, which was a mixture of New York, Montreal, and Quebec.
That's interesting. I thought they were entering Belleville at the end. Interesting. So guys, we were both right. I think visually, they were making, just like the way they allude to like Fred Astaire and stuff, they were making some direct visual cues. Also because it looks like an issue of the New Yorker from that time, which was like famously, where the Addams Family got its start. Like I will pull up some visuals of like what the New Yorker looked like in the 50s, and you'll see, this movie looks like a direct, like a visual cue to that. So maybe that's what I was picking up on, and the fact that like I wouldn't assume that this thing about kidnapping, anyway. That's interesting to know, though, because I was very confused about why Belleville, which sounds like a French name, would be on the opposite side of the.
I'm in St. Louis, and we have a Belleville, Illinois over here. My dad is actually from Belleville. He was born in Belleville, Illinois.
Really? Is that why you guys?
Yeah, he was born into Belleville, and it's spelled the same way.
So let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the big things we're going to be pulling up next is, we're talking about how this movie was released in technically in 2003. It's won a bunch of awards and everything. Won a Grammy. Won Cannes Film Festivals, BAFTAs, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, does it hold up? Do you think it holds up?
Well, I think the whole point. Sorry, I'm like loading a screen. So here we go. This is like some good iconic cues. I think it holds up by nature of the fact that it's not supposed to be a modern film. Like it is supposed to be a movie that takes place in the past, that is referencing like the past, that is seeped into the past. So the fact that does it hold up? I mean, it doesn't even hold up as a good, or it's not supposed to be a movie about the time period in which it takes place. It's a movie about, like, thank you guys for looking at my Pinterest for a second. Bear with me. It's a movie that takes place in the past in a very seeped in it's not sepia tone, but like a very stylized version of the past that very clearly is a reference to a lot of like literary and musical and
the New York used to be, in the Atlantic used to be, well, they still are obviously, but very political magazines. But also, I mean, like the way some of the most established, well-known international artists at the time and today actually, were made work specifically for those.
And look, and as somebody who started out in journalism and who used to be like, I'm going to work for the New Yorker one day, I see this more like, does it hold up? This is going to be the kind of movie that like in the future, and by the future I mean now, we're going to be using this movie to be like, do you see like how like culture worked? Do you get that like it used to be better? Do you get that like it used to be better before we were all hooked into our machines and Black Mirror and cell phones, but like what if too much? Like
kind of interesting is that this movie it does take place in the 50s. You can argue though, like a lot of movies actually they really abstain from using technology, because if you use technology in a movie, sometimes it can very much date itself. Like if you use a certain version of an iPhone, or you can say, be like, yeah, that was like 10 years ago. That's a 10-year-old iPhone.
Ralph Breaks the Internet is going to be so
like
irrelevant. Like we watched Ralph Breaks the Internet recently, and I was like, well, this doesn't work as a thing anymore, because already something was like no longer a thing.
Exactly.
This movie is astounding because I still kind of can't believe it came out in 2003. It seems so much like 2003 was 17 years ago. Like, but 2003 feels a lot sooner to like where we are right now than this movie does. This movie feels like it was made in the time period and is just a relic of this time period. The guy worked really hard, clearly, and like very clearly turned down a Pixar movie, clearly had an issue with the idea of mainstream appeal, and decided to go in a more artistic vision direction. This obviously also didn't come with a team. I was looking at the credits. It comes with a team of storyboarders, but it's not the kind of huge list that you see for a Pixar or Disney film. Like this was a single guy's vision, and he had storyboarders and he had a team to make the vision realized. But I can tell that this guy like storyboarded every sequence of this movie.
Yeah. Well, even if you're not a fan of the style, or if you're not a fan of if you're not a fan of these kind of or animated movies or whatever, you can freeze any frame and appreciate it as like a piece of art. I would any frame. You know,
I
and
was
you
gonna say,
can, go in there, and it's just so stunning. It really is.
I really wish I was more. I really wish I was more.
Very funny.
It is very funny. Eric was cracking up. Eric, get in here if he's still in the chat. Eric, come around the garage.
I would love for Eric to come on. I miss Eric.
Get in here because I think he can be a lot more eloquent right now about like why the movie was good, because he was like putting a pin on it in a way that I felt like I verbally couldn't do. I was like, it's good because it looks old, and he was like, no, it's not a reference to things. It is so. I'm just looking at.
I mean, I like the one with the waitress in particular, where she goes into where they're the close up where she orders Grandma Souza orders the burgers at the diner for her and her dog, and she opens up her thing and a fly flies out of her purse, and just like no baga, and she like and the fly like drops on the nose and cross eyes, and she's like gargantuan, and she's like just moving around. But
I mean, there's so much of this that like I'm glad I saw it now. I'm glad I saw it now, and I'm glad I saw it as part of this show, because after produced one that dissolved the studio for saying lack of talent, and you guys, that's a big flex. That's a fuck you Disney flex. This guy, I'm not sure like how this guy is operating, but it seems like on the laws.
Actually, he came out with another movie shortly after called The Illusionist, which I believe was also.
Oh wait, The Illusionist, the one that's like The Prestige, but like.
No. Okay, no, it's an animated film.
Oh, look, we got somebody. We got him in the building. We got him here. Here to talk in a much more succinct way about why this movie is incredible. We have this building's own NerdChronic. What's up, Eric? I haven't talked to you and seen you forever. How you doing?
101. Good. I was busy. I watched this movie today.
Well, it was your very first time going into it. So, what did you think? Quick summary.
Luckily, I walked in when Drew had started the movie. I missed like the first, I think, like minute.
I had rewound it.
And I was worried I missed like a chunk of the movie, but I guess I caught it from the beginning. And yeah, I really loved it. It was the first time I had seen it. I think I remember hearing about it when it was nominated back in the day, but I definitely didn't remember it, and so I had it was off my radar.
Are you an animated person? Like, do you like animated movies? Because I feel like this movie didn't catch. I like watched the moment that this movie grabbed you, and then this movie like really grabbed you.
Yeah, I like animated films. I grew up watching a lot of animated stuff. You know, like The Simpsons for one.
Oh yeah.
Which is not like like the peak of animation, but like it has like certain beats of humor in it, like tied to the animation, and then also things like really physical things like Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, Animaniacs. Kind of what's the brand of
it's like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, like
that's what I said. It's like
physical humor.
Yeah, the thing about the humor and the animation in this I really loved was the physicality of it, and it harkened back to kind of like old school Tom and Jerry cartoons where the narrative was conveyed through the physicality of their actions and the way it was animated through their emotions, and that was then of course itself like kind of harkening back to Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin days in silent films, when you could you had to tell a story through just like their actions, because it was silent, so that's all you had to do. And you know, the entertainment value of bringing that into an animated platform and the medium of animation in like the old cartoons like Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and stuff like that, when they had those one-offs like where they couldn't speak. It is a unique form of storytelling that I think is more interesting to even try to do today, because we have all the tools at our disposal.
The 5 constraints come in full circle. Kill the wabbit. Kill the wabbit.
So this film, like, you know, like has a lot to say without having to say a lot. You know, it's
nice. See how he's going to use it.
It makes a point of doing that, which I really loved. I really appreciate it. I thought it was like really well done.
You know what? It just reminds me. Sorry, it's comics. Like it sort of has like I know you haven't read it yet, but Cavalier and Clay, which is a great novel about sort of it sort of takes place in an alternate universe, a reality where 2 people are creating Superman to Jewish refugees come to America and create the concept of Superman from watching Citizen Kane and understanding like the concept of storyboarding through this movie, and thus creating like the world's first like humongous storyboard concept. And it sort of has a thing of like influence, like things being influenced by things being influenced by, you know, that kind of like
there's a lot of influence inception going on. It's but I mean, like for me, like one of my favorite parts of the movie is actually in the first like 5 minutes. I feel like it's very similar to Up with its like first 5 minutes where you fall in love with this couple so quickly, and you fall in love with this kid, and you fall in love with this grandma. Like, how fast did you fall in love with Grandma Sousa? I gotta know, Eric. How fast?
It's pretty quickly because like I didn't know what the movie was about at first, so I thought for like a chunk of the film, I thought that the grandma was one of the sisters.
Me too.
And so like I thought we were gonna follow like her, and then it was gonna switch off to like another sister at some point in the film.
I was so confused.
Yeah, so I in my mind I thought it was gonna be like a one-off, not a one-off story, but like one of many stories. So I did kind of had that mindset to get attached to her like really early on because I thought it was gonna be like much shorter.
And that doggy.
And the dog, yeah. I mean, that's easy. Attached to people with get a little cute dog.
Meanwhile, I will say what my reaction was, we've already met two of the sisters, because I was paying enough attention to recognize that she was with another person, but not enough to recognize that it was a man or like very younger than her.
Yeah.
Like that's how much attention I could give anything at this time.
Yeah, but, she's a very sweet character, and like they do a great job. Again, like kind of conveying like the empathy, the empathetic nature of her, like just through physical actions.
Her trying to bond with him and like like her, she's like, I love that she's like she's making him dinner and everything and training him as a cyclist, and she like the way she uses like a mixer and like the mower to like crack his back. Work out the kinks and massage his leg muscles.
Because she's adaptable, and that's something that we see first of all, can I just say this, like, or not first of all, because near the end of it all, it's great to see any movie, animated or not, that's about women that are like older women being the heroes of an adventure story. Like,
she has like legit a detective. She's a superhero.
She's adaptable. Like that's her thing, is like she adapts to a situation. So when she gets there and she can't like speak to anyone, and people are trying to rush her across the street, but she has like this idea, and she won't take she pretends to be blind. And then her like whole plan is like she's just gonna sit down this alleyway and just start like drumming. Yeah. Like she's gonna start like just drumming in an alleyway and see where that takes her.
And that Boy Scout is like, what? Huh?
Oh, the Boy Scout holds up I think that's the moment that sold you.
Yeah, the Boy Scout.
The Boy Scout that
just shows up. So good, yeah.
I love the moment where she walks.
And she just like walks away with the jacket.
And the car's probably just like in the middle of the street. It's just like
three fingers. I don't know why the three fingers did it for you, but I feel like that moment was the one you were like.
It was him, like that was a signal, like it's okay.
It's supposed to be like
I think Boy Scouts are 2 fingers, and I thought like he's just being stupid and doing 3, because isn't the Boy Scout code like 2 fingers?
No, the Boy Scout's 3 fingers. I thought.
Oh, so he was doing it correctly. Okay.
It's very great with like I feel like for a animated movie, I feel like physical comedy can be very difficult to ace. But this movie, I feel like it's like wonderful the way it kind of depicts physical comedy, from start to finish. But I, honestly, it's been a long time since I've seen it. I was asking Lucas, I was like, I don't remember the last time I've seen this, but I think it still holds up. It's not just like for sentimental reasons with my family why we love it so much, but even Lucas, he said it because he watched it yesterday, and he's like, this movie holds the fuck up. This movie's awesome, and I was like, yes, it does.
So do we want to talk a little bit about I can't remember if we did the segment of the why it matters, because I do have a big piece about this. I think this movie,
I did want to ask you,
matters today. Like this movie matters especially today, because this movie is from not that far in the past, but it is itself very nostalgic for a time when people would be able to inhale or accept mediums like this, or something that was a little bit harder to, the very first episode of the show, we talked about hot and cold mediums of Marshall McLuhan, and the idea of something being a passive medium that you just absorb versus something that you actually have to interact and think with. You have to engage your brain to understand this movie. There's parts of it that are visual. Like we said, the waiter, he's a visual joke of someone bending over backwards. You have to think to understand this movie. As funny as the comedy of it is, it requires you to think, and it's beautiful. And I don't know if a movie like that could be made today without it being some privately funded Netflix thing.
It's like a thought experiment, because Drew was kind of multitasking, but she was paying attention to the film.
I was answering emails.
Yeah, and but I think the thing is you had to engage with it, because if you try to understand the film by just kind of passively watching it, it's not going to work because the exposition is again delivered through action and
it's
through
silent.
so it is a challenge on the part of the filmmakers to convey that, make exposition digestible through what they're showing on screen, and also for you to absorb it the same way. You have to really pay attention to what the emotions are being displayed per scene, what they're physically doing, what the actors and the scenarios are going on around them.
You know what? And this is why it matters, and why specifically it is not a very Drew type of movie, because I'm a very literary, I like movies that are based on plays. I like movies that have a lot of literal words, people's dialogue. Dialogue is the most important part of a film to me a lot of times. It is the way the characters interact. It's the rat-a-tat nature of the interplay between words. It's how
this movie really fucks up that idea then.
Yeah. So this movie was hard for me because I kept being they're not. I think my first problem was I was they're saying words. I was I think these words in French, these are French words. They are French words, but it's word salad. They're just saying random words, and it was loking with me so bad because they were saying it in the.
Do you think that kind of took away from the experience at all?
No, I think it's
really away from your appreciation. Did it take you longer to kind of get into it in that case?
No, I just thought I was stupid and having a stroke. And being in retrospect, what it does, especially if you're an American, when you get to the American part of the English speaking part, is you have to engage your brain and be oh, these are words. But the reason there was no subtitles in the beginning is because these words are word salad. They're just sounds. They're like I said, they're Charlie Brown's parent sounds. You'll hear a word here and there, but the point is that it's jazz scatting. It's Cootie Town, Montreal, alcohol.
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies. I do kind of disagree with you, Eric. I feel you can watch it for. You can have no knowledge about what the movie references, not watch any other movies, understand any of that, understand a lot of the artistic merit or anything like that. You can be 5 years old and watch this movie and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, but if you are older and if you are in the film community or whatever it may be, and you're watching it, you are going to have a very different take and understanding of the movie. But I do think that you don't have to understand the movie to that kind of degree in order to appreciate it and really love it I did. I didn't understand 90% of the references when I saw it for the first time when I was 15. I just thought it was weird and I loved it.
I think what's really
I think what I meant though was actually just to comprehend what was actually just happening in the story. I meant you had to
pay attention. I couldn't be on my phone.
Yeah, you can't be on your phone. You can't do the thing where you can't listen to it because everything you have to learn about the film, you have to actually physically watch.
Which is it's something I brought up, and I think is a great question to sort of delve into, which is, who is this movie for? Is it for young children? And if so, is this actually a great movie to get children into art? Yes, kids are going to be running around. Some kids aren't going to be paying attention, but the kids that are going to be paying attention, the kids that this movie hits in the right way, like yourself, I think we'll have a better appreciation and will be more open to seeing going to a museum and seeing art and being oh, this looks like that. Or I feel this movie is the kind of thing listening to Beethoven when you're pregnant with a kid. It makes your kids smarter by forcing them to watch it, even if they want to put on Ren and Stimpy. And by the way, Peggy, who has not seen this movie, don't worry, Peggy, there's no outrage here. This is literally a show about where one of us has not seen.
I don't know. I'm going to be DMing you later and I'm going to be criticizing you and I'm going to be get the heck out of here.
Also,
Peggy.
It's also not in very narratively twisty, although it involves a lot of murder and some detective elements. It's not what we can spoil anything. There's nothing spoilered in this. What it reminds me of is, I don't think we have an American equivalent. This also is such a European movie. Mm-hmm. They have different sensibilities, they have different beats and rhythms and things that they think that they think are funny, or ways that they see the world, or ways that they hear the world. And I think that it worked for me. It also reminded me of when I went to France and lived there for a short period of time as a kid. Name drop. I lived in Montmorency. There's this place called I think it's based on this cartoon they have called Asterix. I forget, it's called Asterix Land or something. And it's basically a big Viking dude and this small dude with a big yellow mustache. And it's their version of Disney World, although they also have a Disney World. And it's just I don't know, the cartoon style is different. So their version of their playland, their cartoon world looked so different to me as a kid. I was this is not what cartoons are supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. This movie looked like that. It just had that kind of blown out style that just doesn't register as what I recognize from my childhood.
Yeah.
But like registers more as like adult things or art things.
I do want to. I do feel like when you say European movies, I do agree, because a lot of European movies, in particular, especially animated movies, they're meant to be shown to a wider audience. And if you're going to be showing an animated movie in particular to a wider audience, especially to multiple countries, it can be, especially in terms of comedy or teaching like lessons on morale, essentially, it can be very difficult to do that in a movie that's so wordy, where it doesn't translate. So doing things through like much more physical comedy, it can translate across cultures and languages. So it's much easier to understand, versus like movies that are, I'm sorry?
Did I read that this premiered at Cannes? Because like this is such a Cannes movie. Like this is such a Cannes festival film. Like this seems
it was actually it won a few Cannes Film Festivals.
That's what this reminded me of. It's not, this like when you said the thing about Pixar, like and him turning down a Pixar film and all the fuck you references to
he turned out a Pixar the opportunity to direct or produce or something like that. A Pixar directly after.
Right. Okay. So, but first of all, it's crazy that they would ask him to direct a Pixar movie if they've been paying any attention to that film.
Yeah, they probably do.
They're basically like, "Fuck you, Mickey."
Or maybe they thought money would be like a good enough of a.
Why would they want somebody who's criticizing? Anyway, the Disney machine aside, it's this movie is like, I think the question of who it's for is so interesting, because that's not just about the age group, right? It's like, does this movie want to be for a wide audience, or if so, like, why wouldn't he just go and do a Disney movie? It feels like he wants this to be seen by people who will appreciate it, and he gives zero shits about anyone else seeing it.
Well, if that's the case, that's the reason why the company shut down like 2 years
yeah,
later.
That's the thing. Well,
I think it's great that they're being adventurous and making movies, like if that were the case, but at the same time,
do you know any directors?
If I was investing in a company that openly did movies like that, I'd be like, no, never do that again. I will not invest in a company that is openly saying we only want to make these hyper niche movies that only like 10 people can see.
Okay,
just because, I mean, like, financially speaking, why would I want to back that if it wouldn't be more feasible for a wider audience?
Look, I think that there's something to be said about like maybe today it actually would play better, because today we do have streaming services. There is more of an audience for niche stuff to come out in a different way. However, like there's something like, I don't know, like maybe it's a New York thing or an Oberlin thing, but like I know a bunch of people who are like auteur directors. That's not to say that they're famous or they're rich or they've done anything with their lives. In fact, a lot of them like haven't as a choice. They like refuse to do the commercial film, or they refuse to do the Broadway show, because their thing is like their vision will not be compromised. And you can say that is admirable, and it is admirable, but you can also be like, hey dude, like who the hell do you think you are? Like just compromise, like just bend a little.
I don't feel like it's so much about the idea of compromise. And I know Luke is like in the other room, he's saying, right, but I don't think the motivation has become the new Disney. And I don't think that as well. There needs to be new perspectives in order to kind of create this idea of like generating new types of creators out there, Imagineers. But at the same time, if you're going to be a director creating this amazing movie that you take pride in and you're creating to this creative extent, you want it to be seen. And
if you want it to be seen, but
like, you want it to be seen. If you debut it to an empty audience, you're going to be like, well, why? If it debuted and you had some people, that's great. At least, but I mean, like, you just don't want it to be completely so hyper niche that so few people can appreciate it. You want some people to watch it.
I imagine he wanted festival people to watch it. It debuted at Cannes. He wanted this to be a festival film, and he didn't want this to be a Disney film. Like this guy clearly does not want to bend to the rules of the Big Mouse, even to 2003. He wanted this to be seen by people who go to film festivals and like love films as a living. He didn't want this to be a wide release, all dogs go to heaven, Finding Nemo. Like he didn't want it to be that, and that's a choice. That's an artistic choice that you can definitely have, and like whether or not that worked out for him, whether or not the place shuttered, and he was happy that it shuttered because he didn't want to make a film with like money that was then going to make him compromise his vision. This is like how a lot of these artists operates. It's either their vision in its entirety or it's nothing. and they make some great pieces of art, and then you never hear from them again. It's just kind of the cycle of a certain kind of sensibility of an artist that's really intense and creates some amazing world building, but it can also be very, very difficult to like work with. I mean, a great example of that is like the movie, what's that movie called? The Coen brother movie where he's the screenwriter, John Turturro. Why am I like blanking on that? Barton Fink. Right. Barton Fink, where he's just the theater director who gets moved to Hollywood to write for TV, and he is just so fucking angry and like and like aggravated and like full of, even though he's being handed all this money and everyone's telling him how great he is, he's just like, fuck this, because he's full of highbrow pretensions about telling stories about the common man without realizing that he's being totally pretentious. It reminded me of that. It's the auteur vision, and this movie isn't going to be for everyone, but it is a beautiful fucking like love letter to film and to a certain time period and to art, and I love it for that. And I think it matters for that.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. I also think that a lot of times compromise makes the best movies. I mean, in a lot of cases. I mean, look at Guillermo del Toro. I mean, it was because of compromise he was able to give us Shape of Water and Pan's Labyrinth.
This is there's a conversation here about like, the artistic development and who gets the shape of who.
That's very, very true. That's a whole other conversation. I
had a friend who was like a showrunner of a very hugely successful, popular TV show that he got booted off of because he would not let like another person take like co-reins on show, like running the show with him, even though the show had like very ostensibly and very clearly run off the tracks. Like it had run off the rails by like season 2 or 3. And people were like, we're not into it anymore. He would rather have got like just been booted off his own show unceremoniously than work with somebody else. And that's his choice and that's his vision. And like he gets to stand with those, in his mind, perfect seasons that were done his way without having to compromise on it. And so he's a certain kind of person. He's a theater person too. Like
that's true.
Yeah. So like,
you love that kind of when you love your art, that kind of creative process to that extent.
Yeah,
you can get very territorial for sure.
You could even make the analogy here of like, and this is a West Coast version, but a certain show that we all love dearly. Like, I don't think that the person who created it would compromise his artistic vision for it and some of the values that he's created for it to like bend to anybody else. Like, I think it is literally something that, it's the same thing with wrestling. It's the same thing with a lot of different kind of art styles, right? Like, it is just. It's somebody's singular world building vision, and they have every right to say, I don't want someone else's hands in my soup. Why hands in soup? Why is that the metaphor?
So there's the metaphor? I have no clue.
So that's great when there's backers. There's great when there's people who get it and when there's companies that want to fund it. But I think like the people who have this kind of artistic vision in their head will never compromise and would rather walk away from their own thing than see it become something that it's not. Like something other than it is. So yeah, no, we do have Streamlabs guys going up. Did something mess up? It should be working. I haven't seen anything, but let's see. Let me see.
Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful creatives that that are very focused on their artistic vision, and it comes out really well. I mean, look at Dan Harmon, for example. Garth's bringing that up. Jeremy's bringing that. The dude knows what he's doing.
Great example.
But clearly he knows what he's doing out there. Some people thrive having that control. I'm sorry.
He got fired, and Dan Harmon got fired from his own show. Like that's the kind of thing where it's like he would rather get into it. He'd rather, guys, what's about that nappy? I blame gravity saying, what about that dollar sign? You mean that dollar sign? Make that sign? Nah, this is not Videodrew. This is a very serious cinema bias. Just regular Drew, just hanging 10.
But like I mentioned, though, I mean, like some people thrive in having all that control and all that pressure themselves, and some people thrive in the more of compromise, and some people thrive in a situation where they have no control whatsoever. So it really just depends on.
Or some people, like I always wanted to work in a writer's room because as bad as I am at listening and as much as I overtalk people, like I feel like I don't want to create art in a vacuum. Like it's not fun for me to not have anybody to bounce things off of. I can't ever write a script just by myself or write a book just by myself. Like I always want to collaborate. So I want to like play with other people as much as I'm bad at playing with others and like dominate certain situations. So like I'm very much of the sensibility that like I would take an idea that I have and I would literally give it to a room of other people if it meant that I could play around with them and they could play with my world and I could play with their ideas. But other people are very, very like this. I came up with this. This is in my brain, and they have every right to be like their vision can only be done a certain way. I mean, there's no harm there.
Yeah, everyone's creative process is different, and so that's what you gotta do.
That's how we got like Tarantino, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. It was like going over to the last, but certainly not least, the last segment of our little show here is, is Triplets of Belleville, is it recommendable? Do you want to talk about it to your friends, your family? Is there a certain person or group or whatever it might be that you would be like, go check out this fucking movie? Or would you be like, it's in the wind, it's fairy dust?
It's sort of like circling back to what I said in the beginning of this. I feel like this is the kind of movie that like my kind of like pretentious college ass was probably already referenced a couple times. Like I probably referenced this movie a bunch of times in college and then forgot I seen it, and then like we kind of loop back here. This is definitely something I would recommend. It's more like who I would recommend it to. Would I recommend it to my friend who called earlier today and was like clearly running around the house with her 2 small children who are like going crazy? Would I say put this on like and make sure they're paying attention? Like, no, I wouldn't recommend it to them, but I would recommend it to like, to anybody who's like in college and trying to learn like art history or learning about like film. Like I would recommend it to Whitney Seibold, but I'm sure he's already
100%. He probably could give you an essay on this movie.
I would recommend it to like Mark Hoyek and to Bibiani. I would recommend it to that's the thing. I would recommend it to all the people who had already seen it.
Yeah,
that's what I'd recommend it to.
I would. I think I would recommend this to a lot of people. If they have the inclination to sit and like know what they're getting into to watch this. I think it can appeal to like a younger audience. Like if you can sit them down and make them watch it. I can see myself recommending this to my parents like very much.
Your parents would love it.
I think they would love it. I think it has like a kind of universal appeal the same way the opening montage of Up does, or like the or that a short film Bao, like the way that had like a nice appeal.
The Bao movie, the
one that came before Coco.
What's ironic is that now I feel like the Pixar movies have become more like this movie.
Yeah, because they're getting those creators who have something to say, but like they give them like their space to say it with like a finite amount of time.
World creators.
Yeah. So it's like Bao is a good example of that. To tell a story about like the empathetic mother. And to do just like no dialogue, all action and music and
those Pixar things. Maybe that might be why they try to go after this guy, despite his like anti-Disney stance, was because Pixar in particular is very much about those opening sequences and those shorts ahead of time, which don't rely as much on talking, but try to convey things through this like visual style that's both once very new and harkens back to something very, very old.
And money speaks. So maybe if they're thinking if we toss them enough money, maybe they'll change their mind.
That's just sort of like a Videodrew style of maybe if I just throw you a couple dollars in your PayPal, maybe you'll be a fan. Dollar sign, ka-ching, ka-ching.
How many vacations you want this year?
Zero. We're all on permanent vacation. I would definitely recommend this movie, but I'd do it kind of like in an asshole way where I'd be like, just name drop this movie. Oh my God, this is so much like that scene in Triplets of Belleville. Belleville. The movie that played against and lost for best song in 2003 against Howard Shore and Annie Lennox's Return of the King. So,
that and it lost to Finding Nemo that year, which was really
best animated feature.
The 3 movies that were nominated for best animated feature was Finding Nemo, Triplets of Belleville, and Brother Bear.
Never even heard that poor third one.
Brother Bear. It's I don't. Is it a Disney movie? I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. It's been a while, but or is it DreamWorks?
Is it a full length? I think they have to be full length.
It is a full length feature film. I mean, like it's not like a Yogi Bear movie. But a lot of like.
By the way,
it made a lot of money.
Someone's asking, where's your shirt from?
Oh, this is a Notre Dame sweatshirt. I've had it since I was like 5. It's like very ratty. There's like permanent like.
Oh, I want that so bad. I kind of like want that. Can you just send that to the screen, Jeremy? Yeah, there used to be very short lists of animated films because there weren't that many that got distributed. We had to go overseas to find them. Like we would just double up.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, it's but yeah, it's one of those. Very forgettable. Finding Nemo. I'm not a fan of that movie as much as, but I know a lot of people love that movie, and I love that other people love it. So.
Whoa, that's intense, Alex. What a weird thing to drop at the end of the show. That you don't like funny movies. Hour versus that's another Pro Bates worth of
I
show.
don't hate the movie. It's just not my cup of tea. That's fine. I love it's not my like top 5 Pixar movies. It's
Paul, the crux of this episode, Alex doesn't like Finding Nemo. That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
My favorite Pixar movie is definitely WALL-E. Honestly,
WALL-E. So this movie of course would appeal to you because WALL-E also has that thing of that nostalgia kick.
That's funny. WALL-E is also kind of like this. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Minimal dialogue.
Fat humans.
Not enough people die.
They start out WALL-E with lost and young. Lots of people die. But in WALL-E specifically, there's that thing of them listening to WALL-E listening to Lost in Yonkers, and that's like his soundtrack and his like in his thing. It's like dun dun dun, put on your dancing shoes and dun dun dun. Like it's a very old throwback New York film. Yeah, and they dance like in that old Fred Ginger Rogers style. Like it's this movie and WALL-E are not dissimilar. So much so that I wonder when WALL-E came out if the director wasn't like, "Fuck, they would have let me make that." Like, fuck. And the humans would have been fat. Like basically, I don't know when WALL-E came out, but this movie could have like it seems like maybe they cribbed a lot from this movie.
Yeah.
For WALL-E, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the movie they were asking him to direct.
Listen, I just want to clarify though. I love that other people love it. I think it's a fine movie.
That's fine.
This is not defending your life, Alex.
The movie. I'm not in love with the movie the way a lot of people love that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how you,
but I love WALL-E the way you guys love Finding Nemo. I mean, but I do love mainstream family movies. I actually do. I really do.
That's fine because I was just saying because I think that's kind of like the unique nature of Pixar films is like everyone has a different ranking of like what the ones they prefer. Like it appeals to some people a certain way, like others a different way. I'm not a huge fan of Monsters Inc. as much as people love it.
I've never wanted to have a child before, but then I saw Monsters Inc. and while that movie was happening, I wanted to have that child. Like I wanted to be a mother so bad, and I was like, did they put something in the popcorn? Like, is this just
so much?
I remember going to see Inside Out on Valentine's Day. I think it was like Valentine's Day, and I remember watching that opening short with the volcano and being like, well, I'm out. Like my heart is broken forever. And then being like, oh, this is a movie about emotional life sequences. Oh no, this is bad. I have to be in a certain mood to even handle Pixar movies. I cried during Ralph Breaks the Internet, and that's not even Pixar. It's not even like
I actually still haven't seen Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Oh,
I still haven't seen it. I know it's not Ralph Breaks the Internet. I know that's not the title of the movie. It's like
the sequel.
Wreck-It Ralph's : something.
It's
Wreck-It Ralph is the first movie, and then it's Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Is it Ralph Breaks the Internet? No, I mean I thought that was like what they thought they were going to call it.
No, that was the actual title.
That was the title of the sequel.
I remember because I remember there was it's not Wreck-It Ralph 2 because I worked at a company that had to deal with movie titles and that fucked us up like every day.
Yeah.
Because like it wasn't just Wreck-It Ralph 2, it was Ralph Breaks the Internet : something. Like it
was colon something of Ralph Breaks the Internet.
It threw us off like every day because like it wasn't just like the next one.
So wait, it was Wreck-It Ralph. Sorry, it was Ralph Breaks the Internet : something. That's crazy.
Okay, so it is technically Ralph Breaks the Internet : Wreck-It Ralph 2. Technically,
that's hard. What a go to
whoever right now. That's what it says.
No wonder you blocked that out of your memory.
I would.
Why not just switch them? How about Wreck-It Ralph 2 : Ralph Breaks the Internet?
I prefer the Chinese title, Wi-Fi Ralph.
I'm into that. I would prefer that.
That's really what it was. That was the Chinese release title for it. It was a Wi-Fi Ralph.
I prefer the Videodrew headcanon one, which is Wi-Fi 2 Ralph 2 Twitch YouTube ? That movie was great. I did quite get my very first Schmoedown. I did get a question about it wrong. It probably might have helped me save the game a little bit. Yeah. Which was who plays yes, like the yes. Yeah. Because I made an educated guess.
I know. I know it's based, not his name.
It's a woman, and I guessed from the name yes. I was like, it's a laser. That was an educated guess, or at least in my head, I guessed that. I don't know what I actually guessed. I don't know if I knew I could go to multiple choice. Anyway, that's a terrible title. Yikes. Ralph Breaks the Internet : Wreck-It Ralph 2.
That's what it says.
Were you confused? You need that colon there? Like, Guys, in case you didn't know who Ralph is.
Yeah. No, don't matter. It don't matter.
Yeah, it was Cookie.
It really doesn't matter. Everyone calls it Wreck-It Ralph. Sorry, everyone calls it Ralph Breaks the Internet. That's what matters.
Oh, whoa. What did I just do to our faces? Oh, no. What I do?
Oh, there it is.
So, guys, maybe we should start wrapping this up now that we're on, like, Ralph Breaks the Internet. And, by the way, I think that's a great film. I know it's not Pixar, and I know people in here don't like it as much, but I cried. I like any movie that has, like, especially cartoons, but really any movie that has to do with platonic ideals rather than, like, romantic ideals or, like, we see certain tropes. I love The Good Place because it's more about the friend dynamic and community dynamic over, like, any romantic thing, which is usually the crux of so many stories. It's also what makes this movie great. It really is. It's like what if Golden Girls and like what's her name, the murder one,
Murder She Wrote.
Yeah. But like it's like old women like solving a crime in the past. Yeah. It has nothing to do with romance. There's literally one dude in it, and he looks like a horse, and he is kidnapped immediately. So this movie kind of appeals to me in that way, and that if I ever do have kids, I want to be like, or steal my neighbor's child one day. Why would I say that? Don't give it away, Drew. This is a live stream. Don't tell them. I just want to be like, if I ever babysat like a kid, I'd maybe want to put this on and be like, see, this is like how cool.
It's important.
Yeah, or like, your grandma was cool once too, because she was on a podcast where she was forced to watch this show.
Yeah, I totally agree. Whenever the time comes and if I have kids, I cannot wait to kind of experience this.
And totally on the same note, you want to, on the same note of having children, do you have any children coming up that you would like to plug as we... No, because shows are children in a way.
I do not actually have any physical children. I am working on several projects which feel like children, essentially. Sometimes I host a little show called Schmoedown. I do it every single Wednesday. Tomorrow I'm going to be hosting Kevin Smets as well as John Kaiser as my competitors, with Rachel Silvestrini as my co-host / judge. So that's going to be so much fun. We're going to be doing it starting at...
Are you going to be able to like hold her off from getting into the fight? Like that's...
Well, we've actually talked about it. And we've actually talked about it, and she's mentioned that especially because they argue, they not so much argue, they have debates and stuff together all the time. I mean, they're all like really great friends. I mean, you know them. There's a genuine friendship going all around. So she was like telling me, she's like, ooh, yes, I can, because she loves them in particular. They have like a really cool dynamic. So it's like, they work together. They have a really cool sense of humor with each other. But that's going to be going on that's going to be starting at 9:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Start tomorrow. We do it every single Wednesday. And next week, I'm actually going to be having the Action Guys, aka Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy, starting at the same time. Great get. Whole lot of fun. But follow me on Twitter at @real_AlexMack.
It's right down there. We actually have them on the right side of the screen. There we go. Perfect. I do have an announcement to make. I do have an announcement to make, which is that everyone should watch Schmoedown. We are officially moving the VideoChronic podcast to Monday and Thursday nights. So we are and then Tuesday nights is this show, and Fridays I think I'm doing the Roca show, and weekends we're kind of leaving open to do other projects. I have a bunch of things that are in the works, including I have a new Videodrew scripted show that comes early to Patreon members. The first episode is up to everyone right now, though. It's called Videodrew Reviews. And I have a bunch of new shows that I'm kind of in the works with a couple producer people on it that are going to be very exciting. But what's awesome is we're really narrowing down, I think, and people are really getting super pumped to start playing these VideoChronic quizzes. Like we have one that I can't announce officially, but it's going to be happening Thursday at 9 p.m. And let me just tell you,
it's a big one.
It's like the Super Bowl episode 1. Yeah. It's the one that I'm like, oh shit, we better be ready to get a bunch of like comments and a bunch of
I think this is probably the biggest one that we've done so far.
It is.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
I'm like scared. I'm scared. I can say that. I'm scared. And we won't be actually taking audience for that one, but you can definitely come along and play in the comment section. There's stakes now. There's money on the table. There's stuff going on. And Eric, do you got anything you want to
No.
Are you having a baby?
No, definitely not. We do our chronic commentary, which I've been liking on lately, but it's because I've been having computer things I've been trying to get in order. Luckily, I've finally gotten there. So we just literally transferred the stuff I need to the drive to get that going, and then this.
Can we say what it is?
We can say what it is.
It's Cats and Contagion as a double feature.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. So we actually supposed to
pick your own apocalypse, guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's really kind of perfect.
Yeah. And I'm going to. Yeah, I'm also going to sometime this week. I think try doing the my first Schmoedown promo breakdown. I discussed my promo, one of my promos, and break down the theory of it, the structure, how I built it, what the meaning of all the shots behind it. I think the one I'm going to do first is the Guy versus Bateman promo from Houston.
This is breaking news, guys.
Yeah, because that's the one I know a lot of people into it, including Lucas. I know Lucas is subscribed to see that, so I would like to do that for him at least, because that's the one that got him to Schmoedown. So that's going to be the first one that I kind of review and break down as to how I built that and what was the thought process making it and stuff.
Is that Patreon only, or is it going to be Patreon early release, or do we?
It'll probably be Patreon early release, and I might release it next much later.
Can I interview you? Can that be the format? Is I interview you about your thought process, or are you just going to do it as a Drew get out of the room?
We'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll figure it out. That's a Drew get out of the room. That's going to be a hard no for him, dog. PLD said that one still gives me chills. I mean, guys, this is breaking news that we're actually going to get this show, because I don't know if you know this, but Eric is maybe the one person in the world who has 4 times the amount of work now that he had before the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's doing these streams and stuff, but Eric is constantly busy. He needs 28 hours in the day. So the fact that we're going to be getting this show is that's very exciting. Tell all your friends. Timestamp this. Put a bunch of teeth in the chat.
Yeah.
Teeth in the chat. Peggy, I still need to talk to you, because I'm also doing the exhibition match on rom-coms. Videodrew is against Josh McCouga and Janine and Brienne. And I think I know rom-coms, but then again, I don't know what I know. I'm very good at not knowing what I know until I know it.
Yes.
Or don't. The Videodrew experience.
And as far as stuff I can plug for all of us, we are shooting our Patreon matches for the Schmoedown, which are exciting, super exciting. They're great stuff. And so,
he's seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've sit on them and watched them to get my mind around it. So we build the format. But those are going to be coming soon to the Patreon. I think a lot of people here are subscribed to the Schmoedown Patreon, so you're going to get your money's worth coming up soon. I guarantee it. Now,
see, I do not subscribe to the tier level that would get me that. However, I did just spend over $100 today to get some of Brett's hair. Do you think that should email Christian and be like, "Yo, dude, I deserve. I know you guys are bald now and everything, but I deserve to watch some of these exhibition matches."
Yeah. Can you gift someone a Patreon tier?
No, you can give them. You can gift them an unlisted link, probably.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I feel like this should be a thing. Just to give them access to a tier.
This is literally going on in my Discord right now. This is the big commentary of whether you can gift somebody a tier. I don't think you can. Not the same way you can gift someone a Twitch subscription. But that's a conversation for another time. Possibly my Twitch stream where we're watching The Stand still, because I haven't done it for a while. So it's now The Stand Still.
Is that a movie or a miniseries?
The miniseries, but now I instead of The Stand, it's going to be called The Stand Still. God bless you. And meanwhile, the reality will continue working on a standstill, and the only way I'll be able to differentiate time is today is Tuesday, because it's the Cinema Bias Day. Next week we have, and this was my choice, and it's a good one. It is. We'll be watching Blue Velvet. Yay!
I know nothing about this movie.
I give you the most accessible David Lynch movie. As we learned from last week's match with Jaden and Brittany, it is one of his. Well, you wouldn't learn this, but it's one of his 3 Academy Award nominations he got for Best Picture. I would have gotten that question wrong in Schmoedown because I forgot about Mulholland Drive.
Yeah,
was nominated for Best Picture. That seems like a weird one. Also, she thought the word was Fincher, and that breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
This is one of the most Fincher-esque David Lynch movies.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm also a little curious because I've seen one David Finch. Is it David Finch, not Fincher movie?
David Finch is the guy, I think, or David Firth is the guy who does the salad fingers, and then David Fincher is the guy who did Seven. And who did the House of Cards premiere and
okay, so I've seen 2 movies of his.
So that's not this director. We're talking about David Lynch.
Lynch. Okay, David Lynch.
This is the same confusion. Mulholland Drive.
What else has he done?
Twin Peaks. He created Twin Peaks.
Never seen it.
Wow. So this is gonna be this is like what my whole thing is. Like I taught a class on Twin Peaks in college. I have 4 David Lynch tattoos. So it's going to be an exciting cinema bias. I'm really interested in seeing what you think because a lot of his stuff is non-linear. I try to give you one that is one of the most linear of his films in that it has beginning, middle, and end, and it is you can categorize it as a crime movie probably or a thriller. Like it is identifiable as a film instead of like a art installation.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in seeing what you think. It's definitely got some definitely has some weird stuff in it. Don't want to say more than that. Definitely don't want to say more than that. So stop talking right now. Okay. So we'll see you again, guys. I think this time, if it works for you, it works for us. Same bat time, same bat place, 9 p.m. Pacific, which is your time, 8 p.m. or not 10 p.m., 11 p.m. It's 11 p.m. Alex's time, 9 p.m. Pacific time, somewhere else's time. And that's been Cinema Bias. Yes. Goodbye forever. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for hanging out.
Yep.
Thank you guys. See you later. Bye-bye.